Yeah, sure.
Don't have to.
Welcome back. Episode 22, Pickers Market. Am I coming through loud and clear over there, Jeremy?
You're really, wow. And that one,
I'm excited.
That one pushed me through the
Yeah.
back wall there.
Wow. We had a little technical difficulty before it started.
Yeah.
I think
That's
he's
all.
I think he's auditioning
Head-
for like somebody's morning show now or something. Hey,
I
this is
don't-
the
I'm not-
crazy guy in
I
the
don't
morning.
I don't know about
Get the
that.
whoop.
But we have Jeremy, Keith, and Lisa's back.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So last weekend was the first.
You are always welcome, Lisa.
Yeah.
You
No,
can come back whenever you like. You can take my
not
spot
like
here.
Keith, like not like sleeping on
not-
the couch. You know,
not-
Keith, we can't get rid of.
Yeah,
We
they
love
can't
having
get
you.
rid of me.
Not too often though, because I like having the camera trained more on me. But
That's true.
That is, yeah, superstar over there.
anyways, so I have to bring it up because Vikings are 1-0 officially.
Yeah,
So first weekend of football was last weekend. Did you guys watch the game?
I did.
I watched
Lisa?
a lot of football.
You did?
A lot. Yeah.
No,
No.
I just
No,
know that the
Lisa.
Twins are not as good. So in an old-fashioned Minnesota sports team manure, they're not really doing great.
Yeah, what are we in, like a 2-month slump
Yeah.
for the Twins?
Come on.
Yeah.
Not that bad.
So I'm
Okay.
actually not wearing my
Wow.
Twins cap outside anymore.
Although I
so.
think we're still in the hunt for the playoffs.
Yeah.
So at least we have that.
We're right there.
A lot of,
Right there.
a lot of hatred going
I
on.
know.
for our
I'm
sports
used to
teams.
that out of you, not them.
But what I'm curious about is, are the Vikings that good or are the Giants just that bad?
You want me to start there, Gangl, or you got that?
Go
one?
ahead. You go ahead.
It's a little of both.
Yeah.
Giants are bad. Oh,
They're
that,
really
that
bad.
team looked.
It was
team-
painful.
Yeah, they looked like they were not a professional team.
Yeah.
Worst was their uniforms.
And yeah, exactly. I mean,
Wow.
that did not help at all. Viking are so on my little fantasy message thread we got going.
Mhm.
I sent out, just in case you guys wanted to know, Vikings 7,000 for the plus 7,000 for the Super Bowl, plus 30,000 for Sam Darnold MVP.
Nice.
So I got a little enthusiastic, I guess.
Mhm.
I'm going to temper that a little bit. They're okay. I think they certainly came out better than expected. We'll see over the next 4 weeks when it gets a little tougher for them when they're playing actual professional football teams. But Darnold looked pretty good, which
Yeah.
I'll take.
Yeah. It was a pleasant surprise. I mean, I was expecting more of. Usually they play the Giants and they're both this kind of. The Vikings, they did play well enough to win
Yeah.
and look good, and Giants did not. They look terrible. I
Yeah.
mean, they're bad. The uniform's bad. The whole thing is just bad. It's hard to watch. Even the
Oh my
Vikings started out
God.
slow. It's just first quarter. I'm like, another Minnesota season here, just slow. It's just kind of a slugfest, and then they got growing a little bit. So
Well, they
They
beat us 42-0 in the playoffs, so I'm happy anytime. we
That's
beat
true.
them.
And tell us about your weekend, because I know you didn't watch football,
No,
but you did do something.
I was busy this weekend. Yeah, I went to Kansas City for the first time, and I attended a advisory event. One of our largest female advisors,
nice.
and she threw a women and wealth ladies brunch on Saturday morning, and it was great. So she
Nice.
really knows how to set up a party and an event, and she had a good crowd. And I did a little market update outlook and with a tilt towards how the investment environment looks for women and how it's important for women to hop on the investment train and get a little bit more involved in finances. It was great. It's always special to
Did
me
you
too.
get to see the city at all, or did you go out?
A
afterwards?
little bit, yeah.
nice.
We did some fun adventures after, so I saw a little bit of Kansas City, but I have to go back to
Nice.
explore it even more. But yeah, it was a great event. I got a lot of good questions from the ladies, from the attending
that.
ladies, and they were very interested and engaged. And
Yeah.
so that's very special to see. And I think when I contribute a little bit to that important topic, that's good. And meeting and connecting with the clients that we serve and whose money we manage, it's always special to me.
That's
So
great.
it was
Good for you.
overall really a great successful weekend, I would say.
Awesome.
Super cool.
That
Now,
is
all I
good.
ever see in Kansas City is barbecue joints.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I know it's known for that, but I see other stuff.
Do you?
Yeah.
Good for you. I
I
don't.
guess a little more observant than some other people, obviously.
Yeah,
You're looking for a barbecue.
Well, I see things on my way to the next barbecue
Yeah.
joint.
But actually, like, because you mentioned barbecue, and I haven't had barbecue, so we went to a very nice high-end seafood place.
Okay.
But I saw it on the
In
airport.
the middle of a landlocked, right in the center of the country.
Fresh.
Fresh, of course. But when I went back, it's like on the whole airport, best barbecue and barbecue space, and so if you are not able to go to a barbecue in Kansas City, you have at least another option
Shot
at the airport.
I do not have another option. Then it is
Yeah.
it is barbecue or a different kind of barbecue. That's pretty much it. It's which barbecue joint
Yeah.
I'm
Which
going to.
barbecue.
Not am I getting anything else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Moving on. Hot button for the week. So we just got inflation this morning.
Yeah.
So it actually on a year over year, there's different metrics. Month over month came in line, but year over year headline inflation 2.5% versus 2.6 expected, which is a pleasant surprise, I think, for consumers specifically. Maybe investors were looking for 2.6 to entice the Federal Reserve to do a bigger rate cut, maybe. So maybe that's the reaction this morning from the investing community. Core came in line 3.2 versus 3.2. So what I want to ask you guys is the conversation about inflation done?
I can start with that. Yes, but it doesn't mean there's no concerns, right? That's always what I say is that, we've actually said for the better part of this year, it's like by this time, inflation's probably just going to be less of a conversation point, but it doesn't mean it goes, concerns go away. It just pivots to the next thing. So the minute we got inflation, actually the second we started to see that we had inflation under control, people start worrying about economic growth, right? That's what it pivots to. So that's much more the concern. And what I would say will be the focus point going forward will be, are we still growing? We're getting inflation under control, but can we still grow in that environment?
Right.
So yes, I think the inflation as a worry point about are we going to see 7, 8, 9 again? I think that's gone. I think that's over with. But inflation trending down while growth also trending down isn't going away. I think that's probably the bigger fear now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the Fed tried to do, right? By raising Fed funds rate, the cool economy. Now you're just in that territory of kind of getting uncomfortable, right? Because you want to make sure it doesn't cool too fast, right? We're kind of that flashing yellow signs right now of some of the consumer stuff is starting to slow a little bit. So I think Jeremy's absolutely right on the inflation side of things. We're pivoting from that. The dual mandate of the Fed is, stable pricing, inflation, and then maximum employment, which now that's going to kind of be the focus, right? To, unemployment's going to tick.
They're going to have to pay a heck of a lot more attention to jobs now than they
So
are
I think
inflation,
that's, which is obviously we're the firm belief, at least I am, of, if people are working, they have money in their pockets, they like to spend, that drives the overall economy. So that's why that shift's now gone from, inflation's out of control. Now let's focus back on the job side of things. So,
Lisa?
I think I do not disagree with you at all.
You can absolutely disagree with me.
Please do.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's not completely done yet.
Okay.
I think we saw like a very positive inflation reports over the last month, and it's trending down, that's for sure. But I think as we are now moving into a cutting cycle, I think it will be again closely watched if it ticks back up, if it's like gaining traction again, if we are sustainably really moving into the right direction down to around 2%, or if it spikes up again, and if there are other things necessary. So I think it's not completely out of the world, but it's way more muted. But I think there is like a little bit of fear still there if it ticks back up, if they're moving too fast, too slow, whatever it is. But overall, like you said, we're moving overall in the right direction, but I don't think it's completely done yet.
Yeah. I largely think it's done.
Yeah.
To be honest. I mean, if we compare how many people from the analyst community, how many people were talking about inflation a year ago versus today, you almost wouldn't even know that the inflation report was today. Right? Like I don't think people are focused on it, especially with the information that we've had over the last month and a half with the jobs reports. Right? We've had 2 bad-ish jobs reports in a row now. JOLTS data was unfortunately poor. not as much flexibility in the labor force. I think the conversation is pivoting more towards the jobs, and people are just kind of saying inflation's under control. The Fed has been restrictive for a long enough period now that prices are well controlled and consumers are feeling it, right? Yeah. Companies can't necessarily raise prices as much as they were able to in the past. And so now coupling that with the struggling consumer, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot about inflation going forward.
Yeah, the only one I could see is maybe an oil price shock, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's obviously not core inflation,
yeah.
but oil prices have been generally trending downward here lately. If that were to return or recover for whatever reason, and not especially non-economic reason, right? If something happened, I think that's where you could talk about, and that's the consumer pocketbook inflation. What I always talk about is like, that's pretty important to us.
Yeah.
Is
the staples.
Yeah. The stuff they take out of core is really important to us too, because that's consumer pocketbook money. Right. So if you're adding to that, then people basically generally assume that's inflation too. They don't care about core. They care about, I got to pay more at the gas pump. I'm going to have, I'm not going on vacation and all that stuff. So from that side, that's the only one that I could see, just because it's been trending downward for quite a while. If that were to spike upward for whatever reason, that could be an issue where the spending component of inflation becomes a problem again.
Yeah. So we hear a lot about hard landing versus soft landing. I want to pivot to the Fed a little bit, because we have the Fed meeting next week with their interest rate decision. So I think as we go on through the rest of this week, and we've been hearing about it for quite a while now, but this hard versus soft landing, like, do we even care? Do you think the Fed can still do a soft landing with the recent jobs data? Because now we have headline inflation back to 2.5%. Core still a little elevated at 3.2, but I don't think that's out of norm, if you will. Like, we go through these inflationary cycles where we do hit 3%, but is there a hard versus soft landing scenario, or do you even care, Lisa?
I think it's important to distinct between those two, and I think for now, they're heading more to a soft landing scenario. I think it depends on how fast they move now and how fast they cut, and it depends very much on the reports that's coming out in the future, I think. But overall, I think the consensus is more to a soft landing scenario, that they're able to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because with the unemployment rate, while it ticked a little bit up, we are still very much below a 25-year average or median. So I think it is possible to hit a soft landing scenario, but the recession fears, again, like we saw it with the last job reports that came in a little bit worse than expected, that all of a sudden the recession discussions were back. So that's not gone. So that can come back, but overall, I think we're in the right direction.
Jeremy?
We should hope for a soft landing. That's what we should do.
Well, and soft landing would be maintaining the growth, and you get
just not falling into
control.
Recession. That's my line of demarcation, right? Is a hard landing is we go into recession.
Yeah.
Soft landing is pretty much everything else. And we've been talking about a slowing economy for quite some time, and in fact, honestly, it's been above average that I've even expected. Even the last couple of quarters, right? We just had a 3% quarter last quarter. I don't expect 3% going forward, but at this point, again, we have to kind of watch and see at this point, because, historically, this would be an area where we would have recessions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that jobs are getting worse. We're in a cutting cycle. Economic trends are getting worse. Usually this is the stew of a potential recession, but it doesn't guarantee any. We've had this stew many times before, and we've been able to coast through it. So from that side, we have to pay attention to that, and we're really hoping for a soft landing, but that's really the line of demarcation for me is, are we recessionary or not? I don't see it as recessionary, certainly so far this year. 2025 is, I think, a little bit more of a coin flip, to be completely honest right now. I'd be interested to hear Gangl's thoughts on that. But from that side, that's what I'm watching. Those are the two things for me. I don't, however anybody else talks about hard versus soft, it's recessionary or not recessionary for me.
Well, so before you go, Keith, so you brought up the point of, like, this typically you start to see recession in this type of environment, or soon to be recession. Mm-hmm. So just some stats here. So since 1854, so the Fed has gone back to 1854 to determine recessions. I don't know how they do that. But there's been
Must have been looking at the yen.
but there's been
Fair
30
trade.
yeah. Oh boy, should have
The
opened with
Civil
it.
War carry trade.
I should have put this as a topic. I should have done it. But there have been 34 recessions since then, which means that you have one every 5 years, which we're at year 4.5 right now since our last one. But if we look back just like 1990, there's been, what is that, 4 recessions total. So we've had one every 8.5 years. So we still have a little bit more to go in this cycle. But do we have a recession regardless of what the Fed does in a hard versus soft landing and what they do with their interest rates? And
I think we do. That's what they're cycles, right? You eventually going to hit a recession. You don't like to have them, and you like to have them short, like the last one was, but they happen. And we go back to Lisa's the expert on inverted yield curves, right? Which we talked about in a couple episodes ago about that's indicator. That was over 2 years old, and they're saying, okay, now we're going to go into recession. At some point in time, you just going to have a recession.
Yeah.
We're 4.5 years, on a current cycle. So I do think, to Jeremy's question, I don't think we hit a recession this year. So then that's, up to 5 years. At some point in time, we probably could hit one in 2025, or at least we're definitely slowing down enough. Whereas if you go back a year, I don't think any of us at this table were worried about a recession when a lot of people are clamoring about recession. Yep. And so now I do think it's actually something to consider, right? The odds have risen in my mind I think they're still relatively low in the short term, but again, just even on your stats, it's normal that we will have one. It's just, hopefully it's more muted and softer, right? I mean, that's kind of, you get into nuances like Jeremy always talks about. So it's, at some point in time, we will have one. They're just usually the stocks have already reflected it that recession. And then when we're talking about recessions, probably when, from our stock side of things, when we want to be stepping into it. So,
yeah. Here's my thoughts on it is I don't think it really matters hard versus soft. I don't think the Fed can control that aspect of it. I think they can just control the interest rates and hope that what they do with it does go through the economy. Mm-hmm. But we've seen that this lag effect of their interest rates, like, it hasn't really played out like many of analysts have thought, right? Like, it's been so long. It's been such a long tail on, especially the housing market, right? Like, their ability to bring rents down or slow rent increases. It has been, we're at 18 months now that we've been waiting for those things to actually slow down and make a difference in the inflation report. The other thing that I think about is we have a recency bias with recessions. At least in my lifetime, like, all of the recessions have been a shock event.
Yeah,
right?
Yours is catalyst-driven recessions.
It hasn't been like a typical cycle-driven recession, and those types of recessions tend to not be super painful. Nobody likes to see a recession.
Markets take them pretty bad. Stock market takes them pretty bad.
Yes,
but not over long. But we don't land in the morass of recessionary conditions for a long period of time.
Yeah, and you don't see unemployment spike to 10%, right? Like, you see it spike to 7-8%. Still not great, but it's not this like massive event that people are always scared about.
Gotcha.
So I don't think it really matters, in my opinion, what the Fed does. I think at some point, statistically speaking, we're going to have one. Mm-hmm. And it's just, can you see some of the signs and the slowing in the economy, and can the Fed buoy that a little bit to push it out? I think that's what they can do with the interest rates.
Gotcha. Interesting. From the Fed side, I think I would disagree a little bit, just in the effect of they can absolutely, being late to the game and staying elevated during a time of difficult unemployment and all that stuff. If we really start to accelerate the unemployment rate, which historically is considered a lagging indicator, right? Mm-hmm. Is that usually we're already ahead of that. But if that gets materially worse and they're kind of, we're still worried about inflation, and they're still kind of playing the old playbook while the new playbook is happening, I think they can absolutely lead us into a contracting economy. And sometimes, if they throw the massive support out there, I think a lot of this is COVID broke stuff, right? I think that's a lot of what is working here, is that we had a really massive differential of, we completely shut down and then we pumped as much money into the possible to get back in. That's going to break some things. And I think that's what happened. And, whether their ability to control that going forward is capable, I don't know about that. But I think their inaction or muted deafness, if you will, in certain events, especially if things are getting materially worse and they're not adjusting. I think they can prolong or make recessions worse. That's where I would disagree with that a little slightly. Is that I think it does matter, but I don't think they can. I don't think they can prevent things. They can prevent cycles from happening. Those are going to happen, but they do need to pivot during those things to make it easier.
Well, I think you've seen rolling areas of difficulty. Or recessions in their respective industries, like manufacturing, for one, has been
contraction for a while now.
For
over a year, I think.
Yeah.
PMIs.
I mean, housing has been there, right? So like you've seen pockets of it already. So maybe we don't get this broad-based recession. I don't know. But
are we in an auto recession right now, do you guys think? Automobiles? I mean, the prices are coming down like rocks.
Well, and you're starting, especially so Germany. So you're starting to hear about plants closing, right? Volkswagen's having issues. I think BMW is the latest one to come out and say that they're having issues. So I would agree with that. Auto prices came down 1% in the CPI report today as well. So
which is a big, big move. When you hear 1%, doesn't sound like much, but it really
for that
it's a big number.
Yeah. And just general sales trends and average prices are just falling like off a cliff right now.
Yeah.
When auto margins are slim to begin with.
Just good if you want to buy a car, I guess, right?
Lisa, you in the market for a car?
So I bought a car in March of 2023, and that
peak,
was that was very hurtful, to be honest. Very hurtful. Yeah, I mean, the other car, the second car,
that thing's never dying.
That thing is a tank. It's not dying.
No, you got a plane instead. Anyway,
yeah.
Second car.
Unfortunately, I think my husband would wait until it dies to kind of finally get his fingers on the truck. But
can't wait till the loud pipes and the huge tires just come.
Oh my God!
When
Jeremy.
Lisa's got to drive it in that day, she's got to take a rope off the thing.
You will probably do not even see me behind the steering wheel, right?
But anyways, it's park it.
Yeah, exactly.
She's going to be way down over there.
3 parking lots. No, I think we are not there yet. Yeah, fortunately.
All right. So here's another one for you. I don't know if this is a nerding out as much as just my intrigue kind of topic, but the Apple event
obsession.
Yeah,
you want to call it.
So for some backstory, I love the Apple events. I watch all of them. I love learning about the tech that they're coming out with. Not that I upgrade every single time, but I just love watching them and seeing what they're doing. So we had an Apple event on Monday, and I was asked, I talked about this on a radio show on Monday as well. And I don't think this was an event specific to Apple. I think this was an event much broader to AI and the potential for it going forward as far as like hardware goes. So I think it had broader implication for artificial intelligence, not just specifically an Apple event. And the reason I think that is because they have now had the phones upgraded to the ability to have their Apple Intelligence, which is their version of AI built into the phones. Not out yet, but I think that it's going to continue to snowball, and this was the base model for them to roll out AI on their phones. And I think it, again, has broader implications for AI going forward. So I'm guessing you guys didn't watch.
No.
Nope.
Lisa?
No.
Okay.
We just get our data points from you, Tyler.
But would you guys agree with me? Even though you didn't watch it, you guys know about Apple Intelligence. I know that. Mm-hmm. Do you guys agree that it has broader implications for AI and AI stocks?
I do, but I mean, specifically to Apple, I think it was overhyped going into this event. I mean, this was going to be, we're obviously in fall, they released their new release of the phone, right? They had some new feature, new gadgets or whatever. And then this one was supposed to be AI focused, and it certainly had a little bit of it, but there was no killer, in my mind, there's no killer app that makes people going to say, oh, I need to go out and run out and buy a new iPhone because of this AI. It's, to me, what you were describing from what I've read, it sounds like it's just like a chat GPT in their system of getting things quicker. There's nothing, it's almost a little bit less on the individual side, more on the commercial side right now, or just like when you search stuff, it's more like the Google better, quicker way of doing it. So it's like, yes, it's got broader implications for AI. I think it was a disappointment for Apple personally. So Jeremy, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, it was boring.
Yeah.
It was just so boring.
Yeah,
there was
just-
nothing there.
There was no like,
Here-
oh, this AI does this for me. It's gonna make
Yeah.
my life so much simpler, quicker, and more efficient.
I should have kept a tally of how many times they actually said Apple Intelligence, but not really talk about Apple Intelligence.
Well, here's the thing. I used ChatGPT to recap what they talked about on AI. And I mean, there really wasn't anything there. Like, here's my question in that is, why do we need hardware
Yeah, that's
for Apple for AI? Right? I mean, we need faster chips. Maybe that's the answer. But from that side, like, I don't know what my device needs to do to give me AI enhancements, right? This is all software. This is going to be all software and analytics and making me smarter and faster. I don't know what the device has really to do with that. That's where this is changing up a little bit, is that I've, when back in the day when we used to watch the Apple events,
we
it
did.
was all about specs, right? Ooh, cooler camera and all that stuff. Now that's table stakes. If I'm buying a new device, it better be the best, right? If I'm going to buy a new one, it better be the best already. Now tell me what it can do that I can't already do. And that's where AI, I think, enhances for the consumer at some point. But in this instance, I just didn't get that. I didn't get that at all from Apple. Like, thanks for letting me do an emoji, but that's about all I got.
Yeah, and at some point in time, I think their goal is to be more integrated, right? So you got the phone and all these different services and apps that you're using on. They'll have some master app, if you want to call it whatever, that AI enabled that'll maybe get all the information you want, do everything you want more efficiently, but it's not there. It's just absolutely not. And that's why I'm just a little surprised at this stock. I mean, again, I own the stock. I like it, but I think it's
saying it's a disaster.
No, by any means, but it's just
blah.
For all the excitement, I think it was a huge disappointment.
Yeah.
There's no other way of cutting it. So,
Lisa, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. It was not the landslide win that people were expecting, and I
Other
think
than
people were
Tyler.
expecting a lot, and there was a lot of fluff, I think. And I don't know if they can materialize the new super replacement cycle that some people talked about, right?
Mhm.
That the replacements are not always not only picking up, but also that people whose phone are still working kind of transition to the new iPhone because of that a little bit faster than they would normally do. I don't see that yet because people were a little bit disappointed. I think
Yeah,
they
I talked
expected
about
a
it
little
on-
bit more.
I talked about it on Bloomberg
Yeah.
afterwards and just said the health stuff was much more
Yeah.
interesting to me than the
Yeah,
AI
the
stuff.
the AirPods, the watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
were.
And I think we talked about this in a previous episode where we think
Yeah.
AI can enhance products, which is less a new hardware. Like you said, we do not need a new device. It's all software, right? And it's all already there. It just needs to be integrated in a way. And where we see like possibilities is like in the healthcare sector with the Apple Watch. With now they can detect sleep apnea and can help
Mhm.
you with that. And in the future to make that better. And AI is already good in detecting like health patterns and
Yeah.
sicknesses and different
Yep.
things, that they're just getting better there, and that AI will be more integrated and implemented in our day-to-day lives without being like the predominant. It will be more subtle, I think.
Yeah. So does this take Apple out of the AI conversation then?
No.
No.
It's so early,
Yeah,
right? I
there's-
mean,
there's
no one really knows what they're doing yet.
Yeah.
That's why Nvidia is still the best of the bunch, because everybody's like,
Still
well, eventually
throwing
I'm
chips at
gonna
it.
figure something out to do with this thing, but I'm gonna have to have the horsepower to do it.
Well, so does AI even have a place in our daily lives then? Like, is it more of a business to business type of thing?
No, I think it certainly has a place in your personal life. There'll be so many things that
I
whether
think
it's shopping
ChatGPT is
or
already there.
Yeah, I mean,
for people younger than us,
besides
they're already doing
ChatGPT, that you can just ask it a question. Like,
no, it'll be
it's
like
pretty darn important though, right? It's
Yeah.
I can get a
information.
pretty informational question on anything I have on the planet pretty instantly, and the recaps are pretty good. They're not 100%, but they're pretty darn good. I think that's actually a huge consumer thing, right? Is that, even in Google searches, right? If you think about Google searches, right, they can be a little clunky, right? If you can get to conversational components where I want to learn about something, or I want to ask it something, or I want it to do something for me, and you can speak to it and it does it, that has huge implications over longer periods of time. It's just we're not perfect on it yet. And again, that just takes time. And Apple's not out of the race at all. In fact, I think they will be one of the winners if you were to ask my opinion. But they're never first. They're never first through the door. So they're always, oh, you did that, we'll do better. And I think that's where they'll get to.
yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think they have a ton of cash, and I think a company just they have a lot of capabilities to do all of that. So I think they will play a major role in the future.
Yeah.
And I think it will be more like to Jeremy's point, like more like a daily assistant, basically. Like kind of helps you with little things during the day without you really noticing it, but it will be very much implemented in your day-to-day scrolling and how
I think
you
the
use
health
tech.
monitoring for AI,
Yeah,
I think
that's a huge thing.
AI could add a lot of
Yeah.
because it's going to be able to monitor you. You know, if you're wearing a watch, wearing your
Yeah.
AirPods, those devices that you're wearing that monitor already, they're not very smart right now, right? They can't
Yeah.
detect really a whole heck of a lot unless you ask it to do so. Well, with AI engines focused in there, it can detect it before you even ask it to do so. I think that's pretty
That's
cool.
where I think the big winner is for AI is healthcare
Health.
space and,
Yeah.
and personal devices on you to
Yep.
help you detect that kind of stuff. And I
For
think
sure.
Apple's there. I mean, Apple, in my opinion, is slowly turning into a health company or
Certainly gonna
healthcare
try.
company
Why
with the
wouldn't
amount
they?
of trials that they run and the recent stuff that they've come out with on the watch and now AirPods being a clinical grade.
And just the amount of people that are wearing or holding
Yeah.
their stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Just
Just
the
makes
data
them
they
there.
collect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Where's your watch, Tyler? Today,
my
when
watch is currently charging,
okay.
but it is a Garmin watch.
I know.
I'm disappointed. That's where I'm disappointed with the Apple watches, the 18-hour battery life. I can't
Battery life's tough.
I can't get past that one. I had that one for years and years and I just got sick of
But
it.
that kind of amazes me that this thing can do so much, but the battery life is still like that's
They
like
gotta get
they
over
deal
that
with that
hurdle.
for so many
Yeah.
years now. You would have thought they came up with something better
Yeah.
than
Well,
that,
especially
right?
for sleep monitoring, right?
Mhm.
If I'm charging it overnight, how's it sleep monitoring me?
And I need it during the day, so
Yeah.
it's like when do I charge it that I can keep track like
they
consistently with
gotta
my
get over
health
that
and all
hurdle.
of that.
They fixed it a little bit with the 80% in 30 minutes, but it's still not great.
Yeah.
All right, one last topic. We got to get through this one quick. We had a presidential debate last night.
Did we?
Oh boy. I'm not a big political talk kind of guy, but I figured we should probably talk about it a little
Sure.
bit. So, did everybody watch it?
Yes.
No.
You didn't?
Nice. Well, Jeremy's
Really?
in like
Caught the
3
recap.
hours of high school.
Yeah, I was I did a 3-hour high school thing. So
that was probably even more painful than the debate.
well, I don't know. It was close, but no, so I didn't watch it.
So I turned it on with about an hour left or 45 minutes left in the debate. We were doing other stuff and I was like, well, I should probably watch a little bit of it. So I did watch a little bit of it, but maybe this is an older versus younger topic or could be, but I don't understand the benefit of the debates at this point. Like ever since 2016, I feel like the debates have just become each other attacking each other. And then the rebuttal is a defense. There's nothing that I saw last night as far as policy.
Mhm.
Like there was almost no conversation about it. It was just how bad each of them have done over the last 10 years,
Sure.
right? So do you guys think there's a benefit to it? I mean, maybe you guys can shed some light on the older versus younger, maybe what they were like back 90s, 2000s.
Gangl, how was that Lincoln debate?
Yeah, pretty good. Not quite that old. I think you're right. I mean, obviously on the policy side, which most people were looking to learn something from, which they didn't, and they haven't for the last several debates and president. To be fair, so I think it's more a little bit of how they hold their composure. Are they likable? That's kind of what the debates have boiled down to. Unfortunately, a little less on the policy. That's where us as investment people really like them. I didn't hear. They didn't talk about taxes at all. I mean, I think for me, for not only just stocks, but for individuals, I think that is the most key, thing going forward. That's what's going to happen on the tax side. And they didn't even discuss it. And
they each said that their tax policy was going to be the best.
Yeah, I know. But then the moderators don't drill down on the questions, right? So I think the moderators do a very poor job as well. And I think they're a little hamstrung as well as, it's certainly now back when you go back, Reagan-ish, prior to that, I probably didn't watch a whole lot either, but there was a little more substance to them. I mean, there was a little bit more actually policy. This is what we're going to do. This is my healthcare. This is the things that people care about, right?
Yeah.
The economy, here's healthcare, here's, jobs, here's interest rates, kind of what's your plan. And there's not a whole lot of that. Like I said, it's what you do well. you're terrible, and then Trump goes off the rails.
Yeah. Biggest thing for me is, we're in a 24/7 news cycle, right? Is that if you want to do older versus younger, I'll take the old man stable here. And we used to not be in a 24/7 news cycle, right? Where seeing the candidates was actually kind of a rare thing. Like you'd hear about what they're doing, you'd read it in the newspaper. This is where you saw them and you saw how they would be. I think the biggest one, and this predates even me, so I'm not this old, but Kennedy was trailing Nixon at a certain period of time, and then they went on a debate. Nixon looked terrible. Kennedy showed very well, and it really changed the dynamic of that election. So from that side, that's where things can change in there. Now we see them all the time. Like you have to get away. You have to try to get away from that.
We see recaps of every single speech that they give at every single event.
Yeah. So you're 24/7 cycle. So what is the debate give you? That's why I didn't watch it. I mean, I had even if I didn't do the high school thing, I had no intention of watching it because it is a theater point now. People watch it to see, is this person going to blow up? Is this person going to have a meltdown? That's what they watch it for. I have no interest in that. And I have plenty of shows I can watch that.
And that was the case on the previous debate, right? When it was Trump and Biden. So that was, and I think people were kind of anticipating maybe some kind of blow up meltdown, but it was really,
I didn't watch that one either. And the ramifications happened, right?
Yeah. So I mean, that one did have
an
impact.
And this one, I talk winner loser. I think Harris did end up doing better. She had low expectations and exceeded them. So in that point, and then Trump was Trump. So it's like that's
how it was. I think both sides come out of these saying that they won. So it's like, and then you have moderators from specific news channels that say which candidate would win, but there's no surprise on which candidate they would say won because you know who they kind of support, generally speaking. So my opinion is like, it's more your point. It's theater. Like it's pure entertainment at this point and I think it gets people to watch these stations that probably are losing out on viewership to the streaming services. So it gives them some ad revenue too. So
hey, I used to watch professional wrestling. I know that was theater, but I watched it.
Yeah. So it's
not much different in my opinion.
I just don't think anybody, if you're voting for Harris going into it, you're still voting for Harris. If you're voting for Trump going into it, you're still voting for Trump. I don't think there was any shift, to be honest. Maybe someone on the independent side maybe was swayed a little bit more towards Harris because of, her low bar and exceeding it. But I just don't think there was any massive change in the voter base from these. So
that sums it up. So
great, guys. Thanks for joining today, episode 22. And with that, we will see you guys next time.